Home is the nicest word, said Laura Ingalls, and I kind of agree with her. I love any excuse to stay home, stay inside, drink some tea, and bake something. So on this rainy day, I thought we could take the opportunity to bake up all of the goods for the week. We've been out of town and we need some bread. So I also printed out some newer recipes that I'm excited to share with you guys today. We are actually going to be doing some yeasted breads today and a little bit of sourdough. I am trying some Newfoundland molasses sweetbread right now, and that calls for a cup of molasses. If this is a bread that you're familiar with or that you like to bake, would you please put that down in the comments below? I would love to know more about this bread. I know that it is Canadian and that it's sweet, and I wanted to try something made with molasses. I loved the golden brown color that the bread had. I will be sure to put down today's recipes in the description box below so that you can try them out as well. I also mixed up this morning some raisin cinnamon swirl bread, which sounds like the coziest thing that you could eat on a rainy day and a family favorite of ours. But I haven't really found a recipe that I absolutely loved until now. This recipe is moist, it's light and fluffy, and it is loaded with raisins, which brings a lot of moisture. You start out by soaking the raisins submerged in hot, boiling, steamy water. And so the raisins bring a lot of moisture to the dough. We started buying raw, fresh cow's milk from our Amish friends, and the milk tastes even sweeter this time. I know that the milk flavor changes based on what the cow is eating at the time, and that milk cow must be eating good this summer with all of the sweet, fresh grass around. This milk is so sweet. To get a good swirl on the cinnamon swirl bread, I am tugging as I go just to create a little tight swirl there in the middle, but also trying not to squeeze the dough so it stays nice and light and fluffy. And as I'm handling this dough, I'm remembering the words that my mom told me that her father shared with her about making bread. I don't know how much bread Grandpa made, but he said to treat your bread dough like a gentle little baby. It's funny the little things that we remember our mothers telling us. When it comes to the loaf pans, I always put a little bit of olive oil and then I sprinkle a little bit of flour to keep them from sticking. So I'm going to put these in their loaf pans and then cover them up and let them finish proofing in the oven under the oven light, and they are going to proof for about 2 hours. Okay, so I'm going to cover these, let them rise for 2 hours. Then I'm going to knead them again, shape them, and it looks like they are going to rise again for another 2 hours. So that's a lot of rise time, but they should be delicious. I'm going to put these into the oven. I have the oven light on, which I like to do when I'm kind of expediting the process. So I'm going to put those in here in the oven. In the oven, I also have our cinnamon loaves, and I put some sourdough in here. I fed the starter, and it is just fermenting so that I can use it. I wasn't going to do a lot of sourdough today. I already cooked some sourdough yesterday, but I thought I might want to make a couple more things. So I'm going to put the timer on here for 2 hours, and that's for the Newfoundland molasses sweetbread. And then I know that I already started the cinnamon bread in here a little bit earlier than that, so I'm gonna have to take those out earlier than 2 hours. I always have to keep a timer going on here whenever it's stretch and fold or fermenting or even letting it sit for 20 minutes. I always turn my timer on because I always get distracted doing something else, and I often forget about the timer. So now I'm just gonna do a little bit of cleanup here. I've got a couple more things down the hatch that I want to make with you guys today. I've got to get the baby off to bed, but when I get back, I'm going to get started some lemon zucchini bread. We have so many zucchinis, and I wanted to try a little bit of a twist and make lemon zucchini muffins, maybe with a crumble on top and a glaze. I thought that would be absolutely delicious. And then I also have a recipe for sourdough granola bars, and this is new to me as well. So I'm going to go get that baby to bed, and then I'll get started on these. So now that the baby is put down, we are going to have a quick lunch. And today we are having tuna fish salad sandwiches. Now I'm going to get started on the sourdough granola bars. This recipe starts out with 4 cups of oats. I'm starting with mine in the food processor because I only have old-fashioned rolled oats instead of quick oats. But if you have quick oats, you can skip the food processor and just start mixing this all together. Today's bars are going to be chocolate peanut butter flavored bars. What I love about homemade granola bars and snacks is that you can change the flavors and put in whatever you want. If I had some peanuts, I'd be using those, but I just have some walnuts, so I'm just going to chop up some walnuts and add those. And the basis of this recipe is honey and sourdough starter and peanut butter. I love the fat that the peanut butter brings to this recipe and just the flavor and all. Chocolate peanut butter is one of my favorite flavors. And this recipe is super easy, super quick, comes all together with just the stir of a spoon. And then I'm going to be putting it in a 9x13. If you're following this exact recipe that I'm linking down below, just know that I did double this recipe. And so it will be going in a 9x13 pan. I am letting it kind of sit and soak up all the moisture into the oats before I'm baking it. I have multiple timers going on the oven and my microwave actually. Timer for the Newfoundland molasses sweetbread. That is on its first proofing. And then also I am heating up the oven, and our raisin cinnamon swirl bread is done proofing. It's last proof. So we're going to be baking that up with our sourdough granola bars. I'm just putting in some parchment paper in my 9x13 so it will be easy to lift these sourdough bars out. I like to fold the parchment paper over the outside of the pan to just get those corners and creases just right, and that seems to be a good trick. I'm pressing these bars into this pan nice and tight because I want them to be easier to cut through and make into individual bars. The raisin cinnamon bread needed to rise to about 1 to 2 inches above the pan. So those are ready to go, and they're going to bake at 350 degrees for about 45 minutes. And I'm also going to put in the sourdough granola bars, and those take about 15 to 20 minutes. I'm doing the float test on my sourdough starter. When the starter floats on top of the water, then it is sufficiently fermented and ready to bake with. If it sinks to the bottom, then it needs a little bit more time to ferment. So I'm just following my typical sourdough bread recipe, and I will put that in the description box below. It's just a very basic artisan loaf. I don't like to let any starter go to waste if I can help it. So with the rest of the starter, I'm mixing up some of our favorite sourdough pancake mix, which is 1 cup of sourdough starter, 1 cup of milk, and 1 cup of flour. Sometimes I do whole wheat flour and sometimes I do all-purpose flour. I'm going to mix this up, cover it, and put it in the fridge and add the rest of the ingredients when it's time to make pancakes. What I love about this recipe is it just sits in the fridge and waits for us to use it. And the longer it ferments, well, the better it is to digest. I've shared the pancake recipe so many times here on the channel, but real quickly, I'll tell you what else goes into it. I add 1 egg, 2 tablespoons of any oil. It's usually coconut oil for me, 2 tablespoons of a sugar. It's often honey, and 2 tablespoons of baking powder, about 1/4 a teaspoon of baking soda, 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Sometimes I like to add some cinnamon and vanilla, but roughly that's about it. So now it's time to shape our molasses sweetbread. And I'm supposed to knead this for a few minutes longer during the shaping process. I'm going to cut these into 4 separate loaves and put them in their pans and proof them for a couple hours more to get ready to bake. Since I'm following a new recipe here, I was really trying to stick closely to the recipe and all the directions. I have never baked a yeasted bread that had so much rise time, so I know that this is going to be a really light and fluffy dough and hopefully really moist with all of that molasses that's in here. I'm really glad that I went with some yeasted bread recipes today. I think it's good to brush up on all of the skills. I've really put my hand to sourdough these past couple of years, learning as much as I can about that art of bread making. But I think it's good to dabble back and forth and making sure that I'm building on both of those skills, because bread making is certainly an art. have a muffin? A lemon zucchini muffin? Yeah? Oh, yeah. They're gonna be so yummy. I wanted to try something a little bit different than our typical zucchini bread with cinnamon and nutmeg. So I doubled this recipe for a lemon zucchini loaf of bread and put it in 2 muffin tins. I mixed together a little crumble with melted butter and flour and powdered sugar to go on top, just mostly for the looks, and it actually did create a nice little crispy crumble for the top of them. It's finally time to cut our sourdough granola bars. You're definitely going to want to wait till these are sufficiently cooled before you cut them. But I cut these into 16 individual bars, and I'm just going to be putting these in little snack bag, Ziploc bags. If you wanted to get fancy, you could fold them into parchment paper and tape those up. They are going to be stored in the freezer, and we'll just pull them out and put them in lunch boxes or in the swim bag if we do some more swimming. And this is a great way to make some quick and easy snacks. Let's show them all the things we were able to make. These are all the things we were able to make so far. We've got our lemon zucchini muffins that came out. I know, they look so good. The strudel topping on them got kind of crispy. It's kind of crispy and crunchy. You want to try? Oh! These muffins do have a glaze that goes with the recipe, and we're probably going to put that on later since we have somewhere that we need to go soon. We made 16 sourdough chocolate peanut butter granola bars. They're really delicious. You can't even taste any tart sourdough flavor that I can tell. Mostly crunchy and peanut buttery. I love the chocolate chips and the peanut butter. They're so good. This is definitely gonna have to make it into our routine of snack making. This is gonna be a huge hit. So delicious. Over here I still have 4 loaves of our sweet molasses bread, and you're supposed to wait for it to get like 2 inches above the pan, which seems huge since they started out so tiny. I bet I could probably bake them off right now and they'd probably be fine. But considering we actually have somewhere that we need to go, I'm probably gonna need to put these in the fridge and bake them tonight when I get back, or even maybe tomorrow. So we're gonna hurry and get these in the fridge. They can finish proofing in the fridge and bake when we get back. Yeah, you want some more of that? I'm just finishing up some loose ends here on the following day. I did end up baking my molasses sweetbread the night before. After I got home from my activity, they would have been better off baking right away when I had showed them to you on the stove, but that's okay. This is real life, and bread making just has to fit around our daily schedules. So with the sourdough bread that I mixed together, I baked off 1 loaf this morning in an artisan loaf. And with the other half, instead of making it into an artisan loaf, I'm making it into a focaccia. What I love about focaccia is it's super forgiving. It's easy. You can just put it on a sheet pan and let it sit there and rise and rise and rise. And you're not really gonna mess this up. So that's exactly what I did. And then I punched some holes in it with my fingers, put whatever toppings that you want on it, oil, garlic, tomatoes, basil, and then I baked it in the oven at 425 degrees until it was golden brown on top. We ate this alongside our spaghetti and red sauce for lunch. You are all such a delight to spend time with each week and chat with in the comments down below. Remember that the recipes are in the description box and that I put a new video out each week, and I'll catch you guys next week. Love you lots.